Welcome to Office Hours. I am Steve Drost. With me, as always, Will Kaplan. Of course, me and Will, both from the Quivr team. What is Quivr? We are the CRM built by advisors for advisors, and our objective is incredibly simple. How can we help you run your business at peak efficiency? And each episode, we take a couple of questions that came directly from our users who are trying to do just that, run their businesses efficiently. Will, a lot of office hour questions are philosophical, hypothetical, right? We get into how would you handle onboarding a client? Well, right, we can talk about that for hours. And then some of them are, I would say, maybe more black, white, very logical, right? Decision tree based. If this, if that, then that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think this one in particular is kind of that interesting little like I have a distinction that I often try to pull out, which is there is technical knowledge of how I should be doing something. Like how does this actually work? And then there's practical knowledge, which is often not exactly the same as the technical knowledge. I had a professor in college who would sort of illustrate this point by talking about this one engineer that worked at this company, and all of the junior engineers would draw up plans and build out new products and do this stuff, and then they would take it to him, and he would just kind of sit there, with his hand on his chin, pulling on his beard, and he would be like, no, this won't work. And he just, because he'd been doing it for so long, he had this just built in understanding of the practical knowledge. They'd done all the technical, like they'd put it through CAD and they, built all the stuff, but he'd be like, no, we're not doing this. This won't work because of this, really obscure, like, here's this use case and it fails under this use case or something like that. But it was this understanding of like practically sometimes you have to move a little bit away from the technical knowledge. And I think this is a good example of that, where you've got like, here's how to do this thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do it well, or that you're going to run into problems as you get down the path. And so I think I'm excited to talk about this particular office hour item.
Yeah. So the question at hand is pertaining to workflows. If I'm building a step within a workflow and I have, let's say, 5 things that I need to do I put them in one workflow task? Do I put them in 5 workflow tasks? Or do I do some combination of the two, right? A couple tasks, 3 tasks, 4 tasks, you name it. How do I build this? And I would say, well, your practical and technical knowledge, I think you're right. Like there are little gray areas. I actually think this is fairly black and white, but probably because maybe I'm not saying I know, but I think I'm the old guy with pulling on his beard where I can see some of these things that we might be looking at. And let's look at like let's look at onboarding a client. Okay. My mom does like everything for that. I get the yes and then I show up after assets are moved over. And onboarding a client, my mom has so many things that she does. And the onboarding workflow probably has, I don't know, 15 to 20 tasks in it. I don't know for sure. I haven't been in it in a while. And part of what we had to do when we were building it years ago was, do we put all of these things in one task or do we pull them? And I would love to have you just walk through the thought process that guides that decision.
Yeah. So the way that I think about this, and we've taught, I mean, like, we've been doing this for a while. I do think we have a little bit of the practical knowledge on this versus the technical of like, how do I build a workflow? How do I actually implement a workflow? Like that's the
Yeah,
distinction we're
right.
talking about. And so I think like the stuff that I try to think about is one person able to do this, or does it take a team? And if it takes a team, you need to hand that inner office envelope back and forth, right? Here's a bit of work that Will needs to do. I've done my little bit, my portion of it. I'm going to hand it off to Steve. Steve's going to do his portion of it. When he completes that, I know that I can pick it back up and start working again. Relatively clear cut, right? I think we're both in agreement. If it's kind of a multi-person, those are separate tasks. Like that feels pretty intuitive. I think the other piece of this where it gets a little bit more difficult to build it out is if it's one person and they have multiple things that they have to do, how do we decide? And I think one of the things that you said that is really great, so I want to correctly attribute the credit on this one, is if I can do it all in one sitting, that's one task. Doesn't matter how many like subtasks or, checklist items or whatever is on it. If I can bang it out all at once, or if it's all related to kind of the same little, like I'm going into Black Diamond, I've got 5 different things I need to do. I'm going to do them all at the same time. Great. One task. We don't need a separate task for each of those. If one of the things on that list, though, is something that I might need to talk to someone else, or I might need to wait, then I probably need to break it out. Does that seem fair to you?
100%. Yeah. I would want to have the things that I can do, right? If there's 5 things I have to do and 4 of them I can do every single time, no questions asked, knock it out. I want those 4 in the same task for sure. But if that fifth item let's say 2/3 of the time I have to wait until my compliance officer's door is open. I would want to compartmentalize those things, and I'd want to close the task with the 4 things and just get that off my plate, it's done, and then keep that one task open until I'm able to, do the consultation with my CCO or whatever have you. Mentally, I would like to keep those apart. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do that. Maybe you're really good at documenting in your task notes, like, I did these 4 waiting on, Johnny to meet with me. But personally, I pull it out, right, in that situation, and I have 2 tasks.
And then the other one that I think or that I like to keep separate is if this thing is significant in some other way. And so like the idea here is like, let's talk about client onboarding, or we've been talking about client onboarding. We'll stick with that metaphor. The idea that I need to send this client a copy of my ADV, my privacy policy, all of the stuff that goes, with that particular email or however you deliver that information. That's important from a compliance standpoint. I want to be able to report that we've done that for every one of my clients. I don't want that tied into some other task, even though maybe like I'm filling out client paperwork. That's all going into DocuSign custodial paperwork, and the client's going to sign all of that. And I can put all this other stuff in there as well. Even though that might be all sort of the same process, we do it at the same time. I would pull that particular item out as a separate task so that when it comes time for me to report on it, it's easy for me to report on. I've got something that says there's a task and it's named send ADV,
Yeah,
right?
send
Easy for
ADV.
me to go get out of the
We pull the IPS one out as well, like, because I want them to see if I need to query that yes, they're signing their IPS immediately. They're getting their ADV at a timely spot. The PTE, 2020-02 rule, we have that one pulled out as well. I want to be able to easily document that with rollovers that need to have that form filled out, right? I have that there. So compliance is a huge reason I would pull things out. Investing is also something that is separated. You know, if my mom is on vacation, I'll be the one to move money and invest, but I still want that separate every single time because then I can show to my regulators, yeah, and money came in on the first of the month and I invested it on the second once it's settled. I want investing separate every single time. Yeah, those kind of key things that you might want to report on or report on and show your regulator. I definitely do that. I don't know. It's interesting because when I first started and I was building my first workflows, for the first time as a firm employee, I actually did it opposite. I was the guy that built a 75 task workflow and I had every single little thing that I needed to do in a separate task because I don't know. I'm the weird person that also just likes to see the workflow built out and just be really complex and perfect. And then I used it a few times. I'm like, this is terrible. And now I make my workflows very short just because I just do. But yeah, and maybe you still like having every single thing, separate, but I would still be a little bit of little cautious with that there is some value in making workflows simpler, right? Especially if you're running them 100 times, with other clients. If you're onboarding a client, you have to open 5 accounts. Do you want a 17-step workflow getting ran 5 times for I picked really bad numbers, like 68 tasks, I think is the right math there. Right? Do you want to have 68 tasks get in the system for opening those accounts? Probably not. So start consolidating those. It'll make the activity history easier to follow, right?
and I think that's a really good example of the practical implementation of knowledge in this situation is like if I got a 75 task workflow as a CSA at a firm and I kept getting that same thing and it was like click, click, complete, 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 complete. I just did 5 things I had to hit complete 5 times. I'd probably start to go a little
Yeah.
crazier. And so like that's a good example of where like there's not it's a decent reason to want to build that workflow with every single task, absolutely. And your transition to shorter workflows with more consolidation is from having run these things and used them and been like, man,
Yeah.
it stinks having to click complete 10 more times than I need to.
Well, it's probably
It's
safer
exactly
to
what we're talking about.
it's probably safer to build them longer, right? But maybe not. But then you get it documented, right? But you made a really good comment there that's actually was my aha moment. I realized that I would work ahead of the workflow because I knew what I needed to do next because I could do it all in one sitting. So what I identified was like, for example, your Black Diamond situation. There's 5 or 6 things that we have to do in Black Diamond when a new account is opened or a new household is onboarded. And I realized I was to the point where I could do all of them in one sitting and I knew how to do it and it was easy. It's like, well, why do I have 5 steps for that? Why don't I consolidate all of them into one workflow step? Now, in my task steps box, I'm still going to document how to do it all. So I'm not losing that learning management component with the videos and whatnot. But now somebody like me or my mom who's done it 1,000 times, we don't work ahead of the workflow anymore. We complete those 5 things. We go back in. Yep, did that. Close it. Rather, it's a I did that. Close. Oh, now the next one launches. Oh, close that. Oh, now the next one launches. Next thing you know, I'm spending 30 seconds to a minute just closing workflow steps when I'm not getting any utility out of closing those. Right?
And Steve, I think this is also such a great reason to use the post-it note approach to building workflows. Because if you do write out every single one of those steps, you can sort of say like, oh, I've got 5 things inside a Black Diamond that I do. I'm going to stack all those post-it notes together. And then you start to see like, oh, that should be one task,
Yeah.
right? I can still have all the learning management stuff, all the task steps are there. But in terms of like completing it, checking the box, yep, this got done, I kind of only need the one.
Yeah. Well, and this is a good case too of if, we talk about it all the time with Quiver. Whiteboard what you need to do, post a note what you need to do, and then reverse engineer that process. The first time you do it, it might be a little clunky. The second time you do it, it'll be a little bit better. But hopefully by that third time, you're more or less where you need to be. So even if you mess up and you create an extra task or two than you really want, just go edit the workflow. Copy and paste some text and edit the workflow. It'll take you a few minutes. And then the next time you do that workflow, it'll be cleaner, and then make a couple little tweaks. And the third time or fourth time you do it, you should be more or less where you want to go. So, and that's kind of why you gave me a funny look when I said, sometimes it might be safer to have more tasks than fewer tasks. And that's kind of what I meant, because it's sometimes easier to scale back the number of tasks and consolidate some of those steps. Whereas if you put a whole bunch of stuff in one step, you might be more likely to miss it. So maybe when in doubt, add the second one. And then if you're like, no, this was wrong, I don't like this, I'm working ahead of the workflow, and then I have to just close tasks to get to the next step, then that's maybe your sign to simplify, consolidate a little bit. But
Tear it down.
but I mean, operations, we talk about all the time. There are so many ways to get from point A to point B, but if you know where you're trying to go, Quiver can help you. We can help you. If you're a Quiver user and you have questions about a specific workflow, you have questions about how we would build something, ask, right? Odds are we have done some variation of the task at hand that you are trying to build and complete. Odds are we've done it quite a few times, to be very truthful with you. Hit up the community, come to office hours, submit a ticket. We are here to help. If you are not a Quiver user, that's okay. Remember, nobody is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, but it's not too late. Come schedule a demo. Come hang out with me or Will. See Quiver live for yourself and learn what it can do for you and for your practice.